I have to worry about this light ones. Hello, everybody, and welcome wherever you are in the world. I did attempt to say good morning, good afternoon, but I learned that there are people from all over the world watching, which is so exciting. So we are super happy that you guys are here and are motivated to learn about AAC. I am particularly motivated because I have a lot of experience with pediatrics, but not with a lot of adults. So I'm so excited to be here and just learn some more. So without any overdue, I'm just gonna go ahead and pass the baton to Amanda and Caitlin, who are gonna be talking about AAC personalization for adults with aphasia.
Thank you so much. We're excited to be here. Hi, everyone. Today, Caitlin and I are going to be presenting on AAC personalization for adults with aphasia. And I am Amanda Gunn. I am a speech pathologist and clinical manager of outreach at Lingraphica. And my colleague Caitlin joins me this evening.
Hi, everyone. I'm Caitlin. I am also a speech language pathologist and a clinical program manager with Lingraphica. And we have our direct contact information up there on the screen. So please feel free to jot it down, snap a screenshot, and we can also share it with you after the presentation.
So we do want to disclose that Caitlin and I are full-time salaried employees of Lingraphica and receive financial compensation from Lingraphica Company. And we have some exciting learning objectives to present to you today. First, we're going to review the live participation approach to aphasia and a framework as a tool for AAC device setup. We're going to identify live participation goals and how they're intertwined into AAC interventions. We'll also look at exploring ways to set up a device to meet your individual client's goals. And finally, we'll identify ways to incorporate caregivers and communication partners for maximum success with AAC.
Great. So before we really get into talking about personalization, for anyone who hasn't done as much work with people with aphasia and using AAC, I just want to talk a little bit about how we even get to that point of using AAC in aphasia and what the role of AAC in aphasia rehab is. So there's really a trend that persists in aphasia rehab where AAC is thought of as sort of a last resort. You know, people try all kinds of other therapies before they even consider trying AAC. And what we're really trying to do is to reverse that thinking. There was an article published recently that's quoted up here very recently, I think it was about a month ago, that really talks about some of the ways that we can really use AAC to address the current needs of a person with aphasia and prepare for the future at the same time. So it's really trying to bust through this dichotomous thinking that people have that it's an either or, you know, either we're going to do traditional rehabilitative therapy or we're going to do AAC. And one of the ideas that we really want to promote here, in part through talking about personalization, is how that's really not the case. The two really go hand in hand. And one argument and suggestion that this article made was that the earlier introduction of AAC can actually help to combat a lot of the fears and concerns that our clients have about using AAC. You know, it's sort of the fact that AAC tends to be introduced later in the aphasia journey sort of leads, you know, leads credence to this myth that it is a last resort. Whereas if we bring it in earlier, we provide it as a backup plan, we tout the therapeutic benefits of using AAC. You know, there's so many studies out there showing that actually using AAC to communicate can improve someone's language skills and really those neural networks, activate the neural networks. So we just really want to stress that as we are looking at this conference theme of beyond the now and how we can use AAC to do that. And just to really highlight that, these numbers that I'm sharing here, these are, they're a few years old now, so I'm hoping maybe that they've improved. But this was Asha Nam's data for people in the post-acute setting. And as you can see, only 13% of people with a dual diagnosis of aphasia and apraxia received AAC. And when you move to praxia, when the only diagnosis was aphasia, only 2% of people did receive AAC at that post-acute level. So we really just want to talk about how using personalization based on a life participation model can encourage us to bring AAC into the picture sooner and really help to meet the needs of our users with aphasia.
Thank you, Caitlin. We're going to jump right into the life participation approach to aphasia and an overview of that. And just as a reminder, if you have questions, we'd love for you to chat those to us. We would love to hear your questions, comments as we go through this. So what I want to focus on first is LPAA and an overview of that. There are many approaches to aphasia treatment, but today I want us to focus on the life participation approach. And it's a general philosophy and model. And what we're looking at is that life participation is going to look different for everyone. This is a collaborative model that supports individuals with aphasia, their family, their communication partners, anyone that they interact with. And the goal is to work towards short and long-term goals, with the primary focus being on enhanced life participation. So we want to look at how can we re-engage the person in a life situation after a stroke or brain injury. So the participation that we're looking at might be different after they have a stroke or brain injury, but it's still an important goal that we'd like to focus on. So since the primary goal is enhanced life participation, the person with aphasia is at the center of all decision-making, and we'll look at that a little bit later in the next slide. But success is really documented by changes and participation. So although that participation might be different, whereas before they were playing golf or they were going to book clubs, what this might look like is a change in their participation from 1 month they go to 0 book clubs to the next month they might attend 2 book clubs. And so that is showing life changes in participation. The goal is to focus on something that the client wants to work on and get back to, whether that's playing golf, whether it's going back to work, whether it's interacting with family and friends. And ideally, that person will be in a highly supportive environment to lessen the effects of aphasia. So we want to look at how a client's participation in their important activities is impacted by their aphasia. And as I mentioned previously, the person with aphasia is at the center of all decision-making and goal development. And so we're going to look at some of the core values of the life participation approach to aphasia, but it allows us to begin with a broad focus of an activity that a client wants to get back to. And then we scaffold the steps which will allow that client to then meet that goal. So the first part is that enhanced life participation. The second piece is entitlement to services. So ideally, we'd like to include a client's family, their friends, their communication partners whenever possible, so that we can help teach those strategies to help the client access their environment and participate in activities. We not only measure that success by improvements on standardized testing measures, but in our client and our family members' reports of life improvement and engagement. The services are not confined to just a speech or language goal. So we're looking at what types of environmental factors do we need to alter to make access attainable? Is it providing aphasia-friendly menus, or is it providing other strategies around the home to make communication more accessible? And then finally, the availability of services. So ideally, a client would be working with us until they decide that services are no longer warranted. And so how can we support them through the acute phases of aphasia, if they go to outpatient services, home health services, all the way until discharge, and then even into a community-based program or aphasia support group. And so next up, we're going to look at how a Lingraphica AAC device can be used to achieve LPAA goals. So LPAA and AAC, what does this look like? If we're focusing on this approach, we're looking at helping a client improve their communication with family and friends. In our experience, and the research that is out there, is that a lot of our clients with aphasia have social isolation and even some depression because they're kind of isolated due to their language impairment. So the goal is that whatever we're working towards is going to help improve communication with their family and their friends. In addition to that communication piece, we want to help them work on that natural communication. So using an AAC device coupled with traditional speech therapy to improve that if that's a goal for them. We want to help them gain independence within the community. Communication is so intertwined in every interaction that we do in life. And so if they are going back into a community setting or they're going back to work, how can we help, as speech pathologists, help them gain independence through this model? We also want to help them discuss current events. As you know, sometimes with that social isolation, our clients might not have access to news and be able to read a newspaper or watch television, but how can we help them use an AAC device to get information and discuss current events to keep them relevant? We want to also help them participate in healthcare decisions. This is very important. We want to provide some communication strategies and tools, even personalizing their device to prep them for a doctor's appointment or to prep them to make decisions based on their healthcare in conjunction with their family members. A lot of our clients tell us that they want to talk over the phone or they want to video chat. And we know right now in this pandemic, this is really important to help foster that social connection. So how can we set up their device? What types of goals can we work on to help them participate in video chats and help them participate in phone conversations? A lot of our clients want to practice their hobbies. So even after their stroke, there are certain activities and hobbies that they would like to participate in. And so with the LPAA model, our goal is to identify what is that activity and then how do we scaffold that communication and what supports do we provide? How do we modify that environment to get everyone engaged and on board with this particular goal? So in thinking about the LPAA framework, it is identifying something that's meaningful to you. So just kind of think about, and you could post in the Slack channel, what activity would you want to return to most if you had a stroke or a brain injury? And then what vocabulary would you need to access? So what would your device look like? If you had a communication system, what would be some of the important topics that you would want on your device? I know for me, I'd want to have family. Caitlin, you have a topic that you would definitely want on your device?
I guess I like my family.
Family, food, that's really important. Anybody?
I mean, even little things, your favorite TV show, some of your inside jokes that, family in general, yeah, but, you don't walk around just saying, my sister's name is Shelby. You put in some of your personal jokes and stories that you like to share and reminisce about. So all of that kind of stuff would be really important to me.
Definitely. That is a great point. So just think about that. What would your system look like? What would be some important topics? And we're going to talk a little bit more about topics here in just a moment. So hold that thought.
Definitely. And we're hoping maybe one of you will be brave enough to volunteer some ideas when we get to the more interactive portion where we are doing some personalizing. So keep that in mind. Okay. So the next thing we want to talk about a little bit is setting goals. So we have this LPAA framework in mind, which is a really great way to approach treatment with a person with aphasia. But even with that mindset, it can be a little bit daunting to actually sit down and write a goal. Even focusing on that LPAA framework, we want to make sure that the goal is going to be something that's meaningful to the person. And I'm sure you guys have all had this situation where, you sort of have this life participation approach in mind. You ask your clients, okay, what are our goals? What do we want to improve on? And you don't get much in return. Sometimes the patient and family don't volunteer a lot of information, or they say something really vague like, well, we just need to communicate better. And it's kind of hard to pinpoint exactly where to start or what's going to be meaningful. So we want to give you guys some ideas of where you can start on some goals that are life participation focused and are likely to be meaningful to your clients that you're working with. So the first thing we have is just some general topics. The idea behind, these general goals that we're proposing here are things that are going to apply to most, I would like to say all of your clients on a general level. So the first area that we talk about is using scripting sequences to create connection and validation. So really what we're looking at here, and sort of a theme that you're going to pick up on, is moving beyond the basic communication functions of, basic things like requesting or basic commenting. All of that stuff is great. It does have a place in an AAC device. Of course, it's important for someone to be able to communicate that they need to use the bathroom or their basic medical needs. By all means, that stuff should be included in a device. But kind of like we just mentioned, I want you guys to think about when you go home, we're all home already, aren't we? When you end your day and you go to talk to your spouse or your roommate or your kids or your parents, whoever it is that you live with and you talk to, are you making these basic requests? I don't sit down, on the couch with my husband and say, I want a banana. I sit down on the couch with my husband and we vent about our days and we make each other laugh and we share our opinions, probably excessively. So we want to look at using some of these scripting sequences to help our users experience that too. So all of these areas, opinions, laughter, decision-making, venting, these can all be programmed in a device to allow our users to share this type of information. I have a little screenshot up here, an example of how you could use sort of a scripted sequence to share some opinions and venting about our current pandemic. Some feelings I know that I've personally had many of these feelings posted on this screen right here. So sometimes it's just some general concerns and frustrations, things like I miss seeing my family. I'm worried about getting sick. Sometimes it's actually an opinion. Well, I think that, restaurants should be open. On the other hand, I do really like getting my groceries delivered to me, and maybe I'm going to keep doing that even when all of this ends. So this is a way that you can have some scripted information to share that. I did want to point out, I know that Amanda at the beginning of the slide mentioned that we are, salaried employees of Lingraphica, and I think that's obvious based on our slides. But all of this information that we're sharing today is really applicable regardless of what type of AAC that you're using. So all of our examples that you're going to see are on a specific Lingraphica device, and we do build them to be really easy to program, to script and sequence. But please know that you can take this knowledge and apply it to something low tech. Or another system that you're using. It's really designed to be general information. That was just a little tangent there as I show you a screenshot of one of our devices. The next general area, and my personal general favorite area to write goals around, is having fun. I think that, again, this is something that really gets lost when we talk about AAC. Everyone gets really focused on using AAC for functional communication, communicating basic wants and needs, things like that. And I think what we need to remember is that communication is supposed to be fun. So these are just some of the ideas of goals that you could write or ideas that you can incorporate to help someone have fun using their communication device. The first one, tell a joke. So one of the speech therapists that I work with regularly, the first homework assignment that she always gives anyone when she starts out trying an AAC device with them is she expects them, with the help of family, to program in a joke. And she says, she might even say a dirty joke, if we're being honest, now that I'm thinking about her and her personality. And she says, when I see you next week, I want you to tell me a joke. So that's their homework assignment for the first week. And I think starting out with something like that, it really breaks down some of the fears and hesitations that people have around using technology. I'm sure many of you who use AAC have had this experience where, putting an AAC device in front of someone, it feels intimidating. It can feel a little scary to the person, especially if they're not as well versed with technology, and they're a little bit scared to start, using it as a communication mode. And when you just break it down right away and say, all right, the first thing we're going to do with this thing is tell some jokes, that really breaks down some of those barriers. I already mentioned, displaying personality with some of your own, sort of personal catchphrases, some of your inside jokes. We all have these with the people that we communicate with regularly. One of my best friends, we always end our conversations with "later, alligator." And it's because he used to say it to me, and I thought, what grown man says later alligator? Like, this is a ridiculous thing that you say. And then somehow I started saying it too. And now it's just how we end our conversations. So if I were going to program a page around him, I would need to make sure that that specific catchphrase was in there, because that's kind of one of the things that we say to each other. And then a lot of these fun activities can be, fun goals can be activities based. So everyone has a different definition of fun. That's great. Different strokes for different folks. So some people, their idea of fun is going to be playing bingo. Maybe it's going to be going to a tailgating party. Back in the days when we went to parties, those were good days. Maybe it's like Amanda mentioned, going to a book club. Maybe it's traveling. So whatever fun means to someone, we want to incorporate the device into meeting those goals. The next area that's really, really big, as Amanda mentioned, especially these days, is decreasing social isolation. So again, this is a goal that you could write for a lot of people on your caseload. Bob will decrease his social isolation, by using his AAC device to do one of these following things. As Amanda mentioned, there are studies out there that our population, people with aphasia, they do show high rates of isolation and depression when compared to the general population. So I think this is a really important area for us to be considering as we personalize an AAC device. So sometimes it's something basic like introducing yourself and telling your story, participating in conversations, like we mentioned a little bit, stating your opinion, talking about your grandkids and your hobbies, giving other people compliments. That is maybe my favorite way to decrease your isolation and just really engage in a nice conversation. Visiting a friend and calling a friend. We're going to show you some examples of how you can create, personalized pages and scripts around specific people in your life, specific friends, so that specific topics that you're going to talk about when you chat with that person. Participate in a support group. There are great aphasia support groups all over the country in person. And, especially these days, there are so many good virtual support groups. Lingraphica has been helping to run one during the pandemic. So a device can be used to help someone participate in a support group and meet other people who are in a similar situation they are. So that could be a life participation goal in and of itself. Mary will participate in an aphasia support group and will use her device to share her aphasia story. That could be a really good goal. And sharing anecdotes and stories. We're going to share some examples with you of how you can program a device so that you can share your own personal stories, just like we all do. When I get together with my college roommate that I haven't seen in a year, we go through and we tell stories about the things that we've done in the last year, the travels that we've done, the events that we've gone to, things our family are doing. We want our users and people with aphasia to be able to share those kinds of stories also.
Good point. I think it's more than just asking questions and prompting information, but that connection and that, shared social experience is so, so important. So really good point, Caitlin.
Exactly. So all those things that I mentioned are kind of general goals that I think you can use as a starting point for any one of your patients. And the next sort of framework that I want to focus on is a collaborative goal setting model. It's called the FOURC model. And it's from a specific article that we have referenced here that we can share with you, but it's available. And the idea behind this is, okay, so you have all these general ideas, but in the research, still what we're seeing is overall, stroke survivors are feeling excluded from their goal setting. They're feeling like goals are prescribed to them, not like they're an active participant in setting their goals. And part of the reason for that is when SLPs were asked, most SLPs are reporting that they don't have enough time or the ability to focus on setting these collaborative goals. And the biggest obstacles that were reported were a lack of time, a passive client attitude, which I think is interesting because you see it going both ways. And as an SLP, I've definitely had this happen. You have the best intentions of doing collaborative goal setting and involving your client in setting goals. And when you ask them, what do you want to work on? They kind of look right back at you and say, well, I don't know, you're the expert. You tell me, what do you think we should work on? So it's sort of this, an unequal footing there and nobody's quite sure who should take charge. And then on top of that is the communication impairment. So it's a little bit of a catch-22. You know, if we were able to sit down across from our patient and say, what do you want to work on? And they were able to just verbally tell us, you know, well, I'd really like to be prepared for my family reunion that's coming up next month. They might not be in speech therapy. So it's also getting past that communication impairment to really identify what's going to be meaningful to them. So because of these obstacles, a lot of times, you know, we are just kind of defaulting back to the more traditional model of SLP in the driver's seat of goal setting. But what research has found is that when clients are involved in setting their own goals, what you see is a lot more motivation and involvement in the therapy itself and improved outcomes. Even if it's not maybe the #1 goal that you would have picked for them, if it's something that's meaningful for them, they're gonna work on it. So they sort of propose this 4C model. And the idea behind this is that you basically, it's a collaborative goal setting model. So the first step on the 4 C's, and hopefully it's big enough on your screen. The first step is choosing the communication goal. And you might be thinking, isn't that the whole point of this whole thing? They make it sound so easy. But there are some specific pointers involved. So basically the SLP's role in choosing the communication goal is to facilitate a positive conversation. And they really emphasize that it should be positive. So what you want to focus on is what's important to you, who are your communication partners, what activities would you like to participate in, and really framing it in the positive rather than, you know, sometimes there can be the tendency to slip back into, you know, well, you know, what's frustrating you, what's wrong, let's look at your deficit, rather than kind of focusing in a more positive mind frame. So you have that conversation. And this is something that they do encourage, you know, using multimodal communication, using picture cards, and involving a caregiver when appropriate. You know, as I said, obviously a lot of people with aphasia are, you know, may have some trouble identifying these, but this is where a caregiver can step in. And we're going to talk a little bit more about caregivers, but really get involved with saying, you know, well, you know, he can't tell you this right now, but prior to his stroke, you know, Jim used to golf with his friends every week. And I know he really misses that. So a caregiver might be able to step in and prompt some ideas. The next step is creating client solutions. So this is something that's done collaboratively, looking at these 4 prongs of this little diagram here. So you want to take the client's communication goal. So let's say the established goal was attending a high school reunion or something. So the first thing that you want to look at is what skills and abilities does the client already have that they can draw on? So maybe the client has some good automatic speech. You know, maybe they're already able to say, hi, how are you? You know, and kind of some basics to get some small talk going. That's great. You know, that's a skill that they can draw on. The next step is going to be intentional strategies. This is really where what we think of as traditional speech therapy is going to come into play. It may very well involve an AAC device. It may involve low-tech AAC and other support systems. It may involve cueing mechanisms. A lot of things can really come into play with those intentional strategies. The next thing is environmental supports. So this is sort of something that Amanda mentioned earlier when we talk about, it's like the equivalent of, you know, for someone who's in a wheelchair, we make a ramp. We don't expect them to figure out how to climb up the stairs. We build them a ramp. So this is the same type of thing. You know, could we contact the organizer of the high school reunion ahead of time and get some printed information, you know, pictures and names of who will be in attendance that the person could bring along with them? What could we have written down on cards that maybe the person could use ahead of time? And then the last factor that just really comes into play sort of as an overarching theme is motivation and confidence, and the SLP's role in building the confidence by building competence and kind of keeping that in check to make sure it's in an upward motion. The next area is collaborating on a plan. So this is where the SLP really is in the driver's seat in terms of, okay, these are your goals. We've looked at these areas, and then the SLP can kind of dictate based on, you know, our specialty knowledge of the communication impairment, the strengths and weaknesses, what we can do to help you achieve this plan. And then complete and continue really just refers to following through on this and continually monitoring progress toward this goal and as it might need to be adjusted and involving family members. So that's the 4C model. I really encourage you guys to look it up for your users with AAC and also just for general goal setting. It's a really great model to use.
Wonderful. I love that model. I love the collaboration aspect. It's so important to get our clients engaged in our goal setting because there are things that we think that they should work on, but it's more meaningful and salient if it's something that they've identified that they'd like to focus on. So let's kind of look at how device personalization is so important in our work in AAC. So once we've identified goals that our clients want to work on, then how do we now get that onto an AAC system so that they have the vocabulary that they need to access? So we know that personalization is so important to overall AAC device success. We've seen this here at Lingraphica, but I also want to share this research from Fried Oken and her colleagues. They were looking at adults with degenerative cognitive linguistic disorders and low-tech communication boards. So although we're focusing on high-tech AAC, this is looking at low-tech communication boards. And really what the researchers identified were topics that were most important to each of the users. And they found an overarching general 9 themes. And the users actually chose topics that are just what you'd expect from any verbal communicator. They are talking about family, travel, religion, hobbies, home, health and fitness, and they don't necessarily center solely around basic needs or medical concerns as the most important topic. Now, again, we know those are very important topics, but in this research, that was not what these clients were, wanting to communicate. And so we want to look at our individual clients and their communication needs to kind of get us a starting point. But this is just some food for thought and just a generalization of, here are some important topics that the research suggests.
Yeah, I think this study is always so interesting to me. I mean, the thing that always stands out is that literally not a single one of them picked, basic needs or medical concerns as their important topic. And I get that.
So important. So what does that mean? If we're looking beyond the now, we're looking beyond just an acute need or a medical need or a basic wanted need that we tend to focus on in the very beginning. What does that mean? So this is an example of one of our clients that we were working with that had a stroke. But prior to that, she was on the golf course, a couple days a week. It was such a social opportunity for her. And after her stroke, she was physically unable to participate in golf. However, she was still going to go to the clubhouse, still take a ride on the golf cart with her friends. And so that was a goal that she identified. And so in her speech sessions, the SLP worked on programming icons so that she could have that social interaction, although it's going to look different now. She'll still be able to interact at the clubhouse and maybe ask her friends about the grandchildren that they have, or engage with others and tell them, hey, let's get an Arnold Palmer. What's the par for this hole? So although the participation looks different, that communication is where we can come in and help focus and help them participate in activities that are meaningful. So this is just an example as we kick off a few other personalization slides to get you thinking about what this might look like. So the first one is participating in hobbies. And so we've had clients before that they really enjoy playing blackjack. They played card games and in their nursing home. And so that was an important way for us to target motivation in speech therapy. And so we programmed some of the common phrases around blackjack. I'm not really familiar with blackjack, but that was a way that we learned a lot about some of these hobbies and clients that we're working with, and they can teach you a lot as well. So this was fun to kind of put these, phrases on here so that that person could participate in their card games and have that social interaction, even if they were in a facility. Another way that we can start to personalize is that communication, and this example is checking in with a spouse. So more specifically, we're going to talk about some smart speakers, Alexa and Google Home later on, but this is a way that we had programmed a page on this person's communication device so that he can interact with the smart speaker to text his wife or call his wife to say, hey, just wanted to check in, let you know I'm bored. When are you going to be home? Just a way to connect throughout the day and use that device, in a way to control other tools in the home, such as this smart speaker. So I always like this one. I think it's fun, a way to interact in that environment, even if they may be home alone. Connecting with family is huge. For this particular example, this was a patient that wanted to communicate with her granddaughter. And so we had to go through and make a page of a way that she could connect. And so look at some of the items that we have listed here. I've missed you. I love you. Those are things that we don't always think about personalizing right up front, but I know I would want to be able to say, I love you to my family. Another way to kind of foster that interaction is that this person could then ask her granddaughter, how's school going? Tell me about your summer. Even the dog here is really important. Our pets are our family. So how is your dog doing? How is Bailey doing? And then a way that they can interact. And so there's options here to ask the granddaughter, do they want to do a puzzle together or read a book? And so this is just a couple examples here of how thinking outside of the box, looking at what that overarching goal is, which is to decrease that social isolation and communicate with her granddaughter. And that is how we got started on her particular page.
This is one of my, just to jump in for a second, this is one of my favorite ways to personalize an AAC device. And it's not always our first thought, but to personalize it around different people. I don't know about you all, but I communicate with a lot of different types of people in my life. And the things I say to my 3-year-old daughter are very different from the things I say to my husband, and are very different from the things that I say to my best friend when we're out drinking. So, really having, it's hard to think of, one conversation page that's going to fit all of those scenarios. But when you break it down by the individual person, it's a lot easier to start thinking of topics and activities that are more specific to your relationship with that person, which is why I really like this setup.
That's a great point. And then it helps to kind of focus the conversation too, right? So you have all these phrases and ways to connect with certain people, also just kind of frames that conversation. So I think that is a great point, Caitlin. I love that idea. And then one of my favorites, anybody using smart speakers in your speech therapy now? If you are, let us know. I just find this so fun. We had gotten many requests of how can your device interact with smart speakers? And so it's just a unique way to use a speech generating device to control the environment of, turn the lights on if you have a smart light bulb, or turn the TV on, or talk to Pandora, or talk to Alexa to play Pandora. So again, just fostering more of that social connection in the age of social isolation right now, and giving our clients a little bit more independence and self-advocacy to say, hey, I'm going to use my device to talk to my smart speaker to turn the news on, or to ask a question, or my favorite is to ask Alexa a joke or to play a funny sound. So definitely have fun with it. Obviously you are using this for communication, but it's also, like we mentioned earlier with the goals, to have fun. We just find that the more fun that we can have, the more participation and the more success that we see. So anyone using Alexa or Google, if you have some strategies or suggestions that you'd like to share with us in ways that you're using this technology, or just for the good of the group, please definitely post. We'd love to hear from you. So a little bit more medically focused, we may be working with clients who want to make more medical decisions, and we know that they may be going to a doctor's appointment, and how can we prepare them for that? And so a lot of times we may have to pull in a communication partner to help us with, setting up some of these scripts or setting up some of these pages. But I think it's so important and worth the investment to get the family involved so that we can help give our clients a little bit more independent. So for this example, this client was having issues with his medication. He was having really bad headaches, and the medications were making him dizzy. So we were able to kind of work through some of those issues get it prepped on his AAC device so that when he goes to the physician's office, the doctor is not speaking to the wife, but speaking directly to him, and he's able to have that exchange. So that is really awesome to see, our clients get a little bit more independence. So if that's a goal that they want to work on, which is, making more medical decisions or talking with their doctors, this is a perfect example of what that might look like.
Perfect. All right. And now we want to switch over to an actual device interface so that we can be a little bit more interactive. And we have a few more examples that we're going to share with you of these types of personalizations. But this is also where we can do some live personalizing based on any ideas that any of you have. If you have a patient that you've worked with and have an idea of something they would want personalized, if there's something that you want to see, hey, how would you personalize a page for this situation? Please feel free to share those and we can focus on that. Give me just a second to switch my view here. Oops. Okay, and you should be seeing my mainland Graphica screen now with a whole bunch of folders available here.
Yep.
So I know that some of you watching this have probably used Lingraphica devices before. Some of you watching this have not used Lingraphica devices before. Either way is totally okay. I'm not going to give you a tutorial or a thorough explanation right now. We are available for that offline on a separate training at another time if you're ever interested. But what I do want to focus on is how we've used our language system to program in some meaningful personalizations. So one of the first things I want to talk about is just a little bit of scripting and storytelling. So one really good example of scripting, maybe someone's goal is that, they like to go out for dinner, they go out for Mexican food every week with their spouse and they want to be more independent in ordering. So here is a folder for going out for Mexican food. When you open that up, you can program in a whole script. So this, all of us who are familiar with scripting, obviously going out to eat is a very familiar experience. We can anticipate the questions that are coming our way, and we can script this in. So from the very beginning, when we walk in the door and we're going to request a table for two, that's going to be up there and running. All the way through ordering. I mean, you can't start a Mexican dinner without a margarita. So ordering your margarita, ordering your food, following up with the waiter, and you would probably program in some more general, make sure you have access to some more general phrases here too, some basics, yes and no, and please repeat that and things like that. But this is a really good starting place for a general script that you could use for being more independent in the community and really engaging in, going out. Another example that I really want to share with you guys is storytelling, because this is something that it would be really meaningful to me if I used an AAC device. I think it's really meaningful to a lot of people, is just being able to share their experiences. Mm-hmm. So within my me folder here, I put in some personal information. So these are some stories that were, personalized for a gentleman that we worked with. And one sort of the big event of his summer was that his son had gotten married in Maine. And when he was going to go to his support group, he wanted to be able to tell everyone in his aphasia support group about his son's wedding and his trip to Maine. So we went ahead and made him his own folder here about his son's wedding, and just put in sort of all the most important details, just really showing how fun it was. Mm-hmm. So as you can see, we lay it out in a story. This is something that we did with the help of his wife. We used some real personalized photos. So he was able to share this anecdote with everyone in his group. My son got married. He can go through the icons one by one. The wedding was in Maine. When you press an icon, it's going to speak it out for you.
I love the personalized pictures. Those are great.
Yeah, definitely. And all the most important, things about this trip, while we were there, we also got to visit the White House, that would be crazy. The lighthouse, and just, how happy he is about this event and what a fun time it was. So sharing information like this, this is the kind of stuff that gets people excited to communicate. We all, if you look at data, including like functional MRI studies, we all talk about ourselves more than anything else. And when we do, there's little pleasure centers in our brain that light up. It's like the same pleasure centers that light up when you eat chocolate. And so that's how we want our users to feel. They want that joy of communication, and we want them to have that. Some of these other examples in the home folder are similar to some of the other things that we shared, on the screenshot. This guy was a really big Miami Dolphins fan. So he had a page for watching the game. He liked to watch the game with one of his friends. So kind of some general things about, let's watch the game, what's the score, some things that you might say during a football game. I'm not a football fan, so my husband had to help me with this page. He told me the number one thing he says is, come on. So that's where that guy came from.
That's fun. That really shows the personality too. You can kind of see, if this person wants to kind of, trash talk their friend and their buddies when it's game day. But also being able to kind of record, like have a friend record their voice on an icon too, to really just draw that personalization through. That is always really fun to see these types of customizations, and they're engaging, which is, the purpose of us getting this personalization so specific to these meaningful events.
That's a really great point, Amanda, about maybe a friend, recording their voice. So, our device voices, all high-tech AAC devices, we have great voice output. I think they're really high quality digital voices, but there are going to be certain things where a human voice is just, you can put it in all caps and you can use exclamation marks, but the device voice, might not really capture that emotion. So this would be a great time that if a friend or a family member can volunteer to program in, to use their voice for some of these more highly emotional icons here. I'm sure all you football fans would agree that there's a lot of emotion involved. That's really great. As well as, some of the other things that come up in football games, like eating snacks and having a beer. That's why I watch football personally. And I don't even know what this means. This guy, Tua Tagovailoa, I heard, my device is excited about him too. I hear he's the new hot dolphin. So anyway, this guy was very excited about this page. And another example, it was a big year, was a 50th wedding anniversary. So this was a really personal and really meaningful goal where he wanted to be able to give a 50th wedding anniversary toast. So what you can do is go ahead and program that in and program it in sentence by sentence. And this is really great because this is a way that someone can use the device in a couple of ways. They can use the device to communicate for them, or they can use the device to prompt their own verbal speech. So I know I've worked with people where, the number one, we programmed everything in the device, and the goal was that, we're going to do the speech verbally. But if that's, not, we hit a communication breakdown, we're stumbling, we have the device as a backup plan. So either we hit an icon and then he was able to repeat what the icon had said. So it's sort of like the device said it and then he said it, or the device does the communicating for him. So it's like he had all these, backup plans in place to make sure that he's able to get through this 50th wedding anniversary toast, telling the story of how he and his wife were high school sweethearts, how they had their first date in went on a picnic, and when he proposed, and just really thanking all of their guests for coming and having a toast to their wedding anniversary.
Caitlin, I'm so glad you brought up the prompting piece because, not every person is going to need the device to speak for them for everything. It may just need to kind of prompt them by looking at a picture or seeing the word. And so I think that's such an important point that this could be a backup or a substitute for that communication attempt as well.
Exactly. Just really benefiting, highlighting the different uses of AAC for people with aphasia, that sometimes it is serving as a prosthetic. It's doing the communication for them versus sometimes it's serving as an orthotic where it's helping them to do their own communication, I think can be really important. So those are a few of the examples we had pre-programmed. I want to take just a couple of minutes and if there's any suggestions from anyone, or else we'll just kind of do something on a whim here to show you how easy it is to add in something new. I don't know if there's been anything thrown up in a chat or on Slack, but otherwise I will just kind of grab an example off the top of my head. All right, I'm going to go with it. So let's say something else I knew about this guy is that I find out he's really into music and classic rock. So he's going to need a folder on his page. You know, that's his new goal, is that when coronavirus ends, he's going to go to a Bruce Springsteen concert or something, you know, along those lines. So really what I want to show you guys, because I think that the idea of personalizing and, you know, customizing a device, it can be really intimidating because it feels hard. And what we want to show you is that it's not. For you, the SLP, and for the caregiver and family, it's super easy. So again, this is not a Lingraphica tutorial. I'm not going to tell you absolutely everything I'm doing as I go to make this new icon. But I am just going to show you how quick and easy it is to do once you learn a couple basic steps. So I opened up my icon editor, and we're going to make him a brand new folder called Bruce Springsteen, because he is a big fan. So I'm going to put in my text. I don't have an existing photo that I can grab of him in this device. And while our devices have a built-in camera, I can't take a photo because I'm sad to report Bruce Springsteen is not in my house right now. So what I'm going to do is our other option, which is grabbing an image from the internet. So I'm going to go ahead and search for my buddy Bruce here. This is really just an excuse to search for him because I think Bruce Springsteen is so handsome. So let's get a picture where he's looking good and handsome. That first one's pretty good. So this is a really great way to take personalizing to the next level, no matter what your patient's into in their community, their hobbies, because you can grab images from the internet quickly and easily. You can get literally anything into an AAC device fast and easy. So that looks like a great photo of my buddy there. I am going to grab that photo as our main icon. I'm going to hit that little check mark. It does some internet magic rendering that image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to want to make this a folder. So again, I'm not teaching you guys exactly how to do that. How we can do that at a separate time for anyone who's interested. I just want to show you that in about 20 seconds, I can make a brand new photo on my, or a brand new folder on my homepage for Bruce Springsteen. And when I open it up, here's where you could start to program in, you know, some new personalized icons. So maybe he wants to share, you know, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I'm going to a concert, half the fun is telling everybody I know that I'm going and hoping that maybe they'll go with me. So maybe he wants to share, I'm going to a Bruce Springsteen concert in November. This is obviously fantasy. So you can put in that whole text, you know, you can make that into an icon. The other thing you can do, which probably I should have done, is made that the spoken text and a shorter icon text. So we're going to make that in this concert in November. So really what I'm doing here is you can have different display text than your spoken text. So what I'm going to do is, because that's a whole lot of display text, my display text is just going to say concert. And then when the device speaks, it's going to speak that whole phrase. So when I hit my check mark, you see I just get concert. And let's just choose a quick image for a concert. So I'm just going to do a quick search for a concert to see what kind of great image I have. Oh yeah, that's a good, actually, I like this one with all the lights. Maybe not how a Bruce Springsteen concert would look, but maybe it is. I don't know. So we're going to grab that little image there. And then as soon as that works its magic, what we have, so now you can see, you know, within our Me page, we have our Bruce Springsteen folder because that's a really big hobby. I'm going to open him up, and we've already made our first icon to share that that I'm going to attend a Bruce Springsteen concert.
Awesome. I think I don't know about this patient, but I might want to then put a new icon about, hey, you know, Pandora, play Bruce Springsteen station.
Exactly.
So that would be, you know, just another level of fun that they can have with the device.
That would be a great way to incorporate a smart home speaker in here. Alexa, play me some Bruce Springsteen, and just kind of, and then when the concert's over, this is also where you can document it. You know, you can use the camera, take some pictures while you're at the concert, turn that into an icon, and you'd be able to then share that experience with others. So these are just a couple of ideas, and hopefully making it feel a little bit less intimidating at how quickly you can do this personalization to make a device appropriate, fun and appropriate for a patient. I know that this is an AAC specific conference, so maybe you all are more experienced than I was when I first started out as a clinician, but I can tell you that when I was, you know, a new clinician working with clients with AAC, I was scared to program their devices. I thought it was going to be super complicated. I thought I was going to mess something up, and I was just kind of like, okay, I guess we'll work with what we have here, which is, it's the opposite of what we want. We really want to make these changes and make it dynamic. All right, with that said, I am going to switch back to our PowerPoint. Give me just a second as I...
Yeah, I mean, while you pull that up, like you mentioned, Caitlin, it does seem overwhelming, but just know that we can change it. If it doesn't work, if we want it to look different, if we figure out that this patient doesn't want to talk about this anymore, we'll just delete it. That's the great thing about having dynamic AAC devices.
Exactly. Easy come, easy go. That's the great thing about high-tech AAC. Unlike, you know, a picture book where it's a lot of effort to make, and I guess it's not a lot of effort to get rid of them, but it's a lot of effort to make them. So, all right, I know we just have a few minutes left in our session. The last topic we want to touch base on a little bit is the really important role of communication partners when it comes to AAC and personalization. So we all wish that we could keep our patients on caseload forever, most of the time, most of our patients, but the reality is that we can't. And when we're not seeing them, especially for our patients with aphasia, a lot of whom need support using and personalizing their devices, they might be what we call partner dependent users. We're going to need the communication partners to be involved and to be supporting them. So we just want to talk a little bit about their role and getting them involved. Communication partners are really important to us at Lingraphica. Earlier this year, we did a whole survey on caregivers and communication partners, because what we see over and over again is that involving a communication partner is sort of the thing that makes or breaks how successful someone is using AAC. So we wanted to learn more about the caregivers and communication partners of people with aphasia. So we did a really big survey. This wasn't limited to people who use Lingraphica devices. We opened this up to various aphasia support groups. So people with different severity levels of aphasia, people who used AAC, some people who did not. And we had a really good response rate. It was over 700 responses. And we learned a lot of basic stuff, demographic information and that kind of thing. But the thing that I want to focus on is what we really learned about the caregivers' lives. So one of the things we asked them was, what impact had the aphasia diagnosis had on them? You know, we all get really focused on the person with aphasia, but what about the caregiver? And what we found was that most of them were reporting really significant increases in stress, concerns about emotional well-being, decreased sleep quality and energy. So really what this told us is that caregivers need support. They need more support than they're getting from SLPs, from social workers, from the community, and from us as device manufacturers. And we also asked them about the biggest challenges that they face. And this is where it really comes back to AAC personalization, because the biggest challenges that they reported were an inability to communicate with their loved one and adjusting to how dependent their loved one was on them. And if you think about it, these are both areas where having a highly personalized AAC device can make a really big improvement. So just kind of to wrap up is how can we get these caregivers involved in personalization? I'm not really going to go over the first two bullet points. These are more general strategies in terms of basic communication with someone with AAC and presuming that they're there with a positive intention. There's a lot of research and information available about those. But what I want to talk about is what can you have them do in terms of personalizing? So the first thing is ask them, hey, you know, what topics would you like to communicate about with your communication partner, you know, with your loved one with aphasia? What topics are important to you both? What do you need to communicate about? And what could we program to decrease their dependence on you? So I think the example of, you know, meeting with a doctor was a great example. If someone can be more independent in their healthcare, if someone can be more independent, you know, in their daily life activities or ordering their food, that can ease a lot of the burden on the caregiver. And then the other thing we talk about is we're going to teach them. You guys just saw very briefly how easy it is to personalize a device. And there's no reason that family members can't do that also. So what we really encourage is giving them tasks to personalize in the device. There are some things that they're going to be uniquely suited to do, like programming in family members' names and pictures. So this is a really great homework assignment when you've got someone trying out an AAC device. You can say, okay, by the time I see you next week, I want pictures of every single family member loaded in this device. And that can be something that they can do at home. Similar things for things around the house, things in the community. And like we've already mentioned, no one's going to be more familiar with those sort of personal catchphrases and inside jokes than a family member or a close communication partner.
Absolutely.
And that's really what we wanted to wrap up on. We just wanted to share this additional information with you to let you know that we are here to help. We are always happy to give additional training and support. So if you have clinical questions about a client on your caseload, how you would personalize a device for them, how you would set goals for them. If you want a more personalized device demo, we're happy to do a Zoom demo for you. So there's a couple of ways that you can schedule it. You're welcome to reach out to us directly, or you're welcome to visit our website and just schedule a time for one of us to talk to you. We're more than happy to just chat about your client. And on our website, we also have a whole collection of free courses that are for CEU credit, a really wide variety of topics. So we really encourage you to check those out also.
Yeah, we'd love to connect with you. So if you have questions, send them our way. Did we have any questions in chat as well?
We don't. The one thing that everybody wants, it's the download for your slides, because we didn't get that. So
I apologize.
Awesome.
I guess I didn't realize you guys didn't have that yet. We can definitely get you copies of our handouts.
Yay,
Absolutely.
that's awesome. So I'm sure that, let me double check here. Was Laura and S. Bram 94 they're asking for, so they'll definitely appreciate that, and I do too, because I loved your presentation. So thank you so much, Caitlin and Amanda. We do have some comments there. I don't know if they're necessarily questions.
Sure.
Oh yeah, that was the slides again. So everybody's happy about that. And then we did had some comments as you guys went along the presentation, so you may just want to go back there and read some great suggestions as well. So thank you so much. That was really awesome, and definitely looking forward to see your slides.
Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you everyone for participating.
Yeah, thank you everybody for your participation. Truly appreciate it. Have a good one.
You
Great.
too. Bye.
Bye everyone.